Okay, this is going to be a demonstration of how you can just do a relatively simple assessment of landscape features with respect to their potential benefits for habitat suitability for different species or ecosystem services. Now you could just create a feast project which would create a data file for the features, but it would also create biodiversity monitoring data and also give you the mapping facility if you wanted that. But if you're not interested in doing any mapping or looking at biodiversity monitoring data and you just want to do a simple assessment, then all you really need to do is create a data file. Now you can do that from the menu here, File, and then Feature Data, New File. So we could do that. I'm just going to overwrite this file here. So we've created a blank data file. Now one of the first things you need to do is just check some of the settings for that file. So first thing to do is maybe look here to see what your assumption protocol is if you're not going to enter all the data. So when you don't enter all the data, it needs to know whether to calculate average, best or worst case data for when those are missing. So you can leave that as it is or change it. And we also need to know what indicators and metrics you want to assess. There'll be some selected by default if you've already done it before, or else you can go through just checking which ones you want to include. I'm going to leave them as they are for now. Then to actually start doing the assessment, we simply go into the Land and Feature Manager. That gives us this interface here, and the first thing I'm going to do is just create a group. And so I'm going to call this is going to be our woodland, and then I'm going to create a second group, and that's going to be our arable land. Then I'm going to select a group, and then I'm going to add a feature. In this case I'm just going to call that woodland 1. Then we just start entering the data. So is it an existing woodland or it's something that's planned? What type is it? It's woodland in this instance. Then it immediately opens up a number of other parameters once you select the feature type. Then you need to enter the area. Let's just say it's a 1 hectare woodland, which is 10,000 square meters. At the moment it's asking me to save the data as I go along. You can, if you want, on the options menu, switch on the auto save feature. That will just constantly save each piece of data as you enter it. It can be a little bit slower because it's saving every time you make a change. But it can also be quicker in the fact you don't have to keep clicking on save, so it's up to you. So we'll save that data. Now immediately when I've saved that data in this instance, it's started doing some calculations on some of the impacts, even though we haven't entered all the data. Because we've got that assumption protocol in place, it's already calculated it using average data for these different parameters here. Here you've got icons just displaying the data. You can just hover over them to know what they are. In this case that's for bobstillbat forage, that's for hibernation, and that's for maternity roost. So it's giving you an idea. In this case, based on average data, it's looking pretty good. The green bar is a normalized impact calculation based on the percent of the maximum value that you could have for that particular habitat for this particular feature. If you wanted to see the actual data, you come onto the tab here and you've got the impact score per hectare and then the normalized impact there. In this case it's all very simple. If you were to start entering data, then you might find that it starts to change. So if we say let's change the woodland type, and we'll change that to coniferous, and now if we save again, suddenly we find actually bobstillbat's not a fan of coniferous woodland, so our green bars have all disappeared in this instance. It's suddenly become not a suitable habitat. Whereas if we now change that back to say broadleaf, save that again, and again those green bars have got up. If you're not sure about what any of these are, you can go onto the guidance tab, and in this case it will say OK. You can select one of these options here, and that changes as you select different data. So if we go to the ecological zone, we can either select one from a drop down list, or there is actually a clickable map available. So that's opened up the clickable map. We can now select ecological zone. Now if you actually want to see the zones on the map, we can just categorize here. It does take a few seconds to load, but if you want to see them so you can see where they are, it will then just load up. You can see it categorizing down in the bottom right hand corner here. It's a little bit slow because obviously it's doing the whole of Europe. You can of course just click on the map and without having the actual colours put on there, but you're just interested to see where the zones are. This is quite useful just to display it like this. There we go. So you can see the various ecological zones here, and then if we want to select one, we've got that now selected, and then we choose select, and it's asking us do you want to add all relevant parameters. In this case no, but it's selected temperate oceanic forest for us there. So that's an easy way of doing it, or of course, as I said earlier, you can just select from drop down list if you know the zone already. When we do that, of course, we can then click on save again and it will recalculate again. In this case, the ecological zone will affect things like the carbon stock. So that just shows you how you can do that. We might then say add in another feature. In this case, we'll add in an arable field. So let's call that field 1. Again, we'll just start entering the data. In this case, it's arable land. Okay, we'll say it's just 1 hectare, and then we'll save that there. And in this instance, we've got a slightly different set of impact categories. We've got white butterflies and also curled bunting for forage and overwintering. And we've also got carbon stock biomass there. And again, we can just start looking at what other data could be entered and see how that affects our impacts. So we might say, is the headland a normal headland or is it conservation headland? If we click that, we can see some of the scores have increased accordingly. So that just shows you how you can sort of just quickly just pick a few different features. You can add many more, of course. You can organize them into groups and things however you like, and it gives you some immediate feedback on the potential suitability of those habitats. Now, the one thing it doesn't do is actually take account of all the habitats together within the landscape, so how close they are, what's their sort of configuration in the landscape. Do you provide all the different suitable, all different habitats that certain species need? You would need to do a sort of mapping assessment to do that, so you can see spatially where they all are and are they close enough together or are they too far apart. What you can do, of course, is use the report builder. If we go into that and look at the outputs in one place, so it may well be that we want to look at so if we're just looking at curled buntings there, and if we select that, we can see actually in this case it's only field 1 that gives that benefit. But if you've got multiple different features on the farm, you can see how all their scores vary across the farm, so it just gives you an idea of the profile of where the strengths and weaknesses are across all your different features in the landscape for that particular impact category, in this case this species of curled bunting. So that's about it for this demonstration. It was just purely just to give you an idea of how you can just do rapid assessment without having to get into all the detail of biodiversity monitoring data or creating maps and what have you. So you can just do a very quick assessment if you like, just for a specific number of features or as many features as you like, and just to compare them all. I will end the demonstration there. Thank you for your time.